In five, four, three, two, one. Hey, it's Lawrence, aka LawTPlays, aka LTP Music, aka LTP Games, and now welcome to my new show, LTPcasts. This is where we spill the tea and we pod the casts. I know that's nonsensical, but I'm just gonna put it out there and hope it sticks. What do you think, Mike?
Yo, I rate it still. I love it. I love it.
Okay, awesome. So we'll see if that like flies. But anyways, thank you everybody for coming out. If you've listened to my introduction on episode 0, you'll have an idea of what the show's about. But to let you all know again, at the core of it all, I'm on a journey to find happiness, and I want you all to join me in discovering the different answers, or even if there's an answer at all. So I'm going to, tell you guys a lot about myself, but as well as hoping that my guests will be just as candid to and would willing to share their own experiences and their own uh, things and their own experiences and thoughts on finding happiness, fulfillment, and meaning in life. Um, so today's episode, you'll get to know me a bit, of course, but we're really gonna focus on my guest right here, wherever the picture is. And so just to introduce him, he's been one of my best friends for the last 15 years or 14. I can't remember. It's been a long time. 15 or 14, it doesn't matter. It's the same. He's a talented graphic designer, and I always double check with him when it comes to buying new clothes and if my outfit looks right, because he's all about the streetwear. Give it up for my friend Mike Ledesma.
Hey guys, how's it going? Lawrence, thanks for having me, man. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, man. So it is going to be fun. It is our first try at this. So everyone out there who's listening or watching, please bear with us in um, whatever happens. I tend to stutter quite a bit, so hopefully I can reduce that little bit by talking a little slower. My partner always tells me I need to stop talking so quickly because I lose track of my thoughts.
Yo, real talk, man. I suffered the same thing. Like my partner is always just like, "What?" Even though I say it as slow as I can, and then when I get it to a point where it's like kind of like audible, I feel like I'm in slow motion.
It's not even like speaking too fast for people to not understand me necessarily. It's like if I just spoke slower, my thoughts would come out a lot better.
Yeah,
And I wouldn't just like say like all the time as I am doing
exactly.
already.
Or it's like where you need to like get your thought out so like as fast as possible before you use it. So you just like turbo through your entire sentence and just hopefully the idea comes across.
Yeah. So anyways, just to move along, how about we first talk about how we met, how we became friends.
Yeah, yeah. Man, yo, like real talk, I still remember that day just because like that was such like that day started kind of out like really dooky, but like by the end of it all, it was like a really, really fun day.
For
So
sure.
yeah, like from what I remember is that
Oh,
it was I think around
before the
two
actual day, let's give some context to like how we kind of knew each other already, really.
oh oh yeah, yeah.
So it was we were both part of this like this prayer group, right, for youth. And so like it's not that we hadn't seen each other, but I think this is like the story we're about to tell is like more about like how we really got to know each other and like
Yeah, like yeah, because like I remember I saw you around at like other events and stuff, but we didn't really take notice to each other just because like we were from like different, I guess, parts of the group and whatnot, and we just kind of kept to our own people that we knew. But then yeah, like you said, like this is definitely like the beginning of something good or something bad, depending on how you look at it.
for sure. So like I guess in that story it was P&D Filipino National Day, and we went to Wonderland because Wonderland had like a deal, right, for people. And it was, yeah, and then I think you mentioned one time when we were talking about this before that we couldn't get into the performance for P&D. in inside. We were already in Wonderland, but we couldn't get into the performance because we had like the wrong ticket or something.
Like the ticket that we got was like a random. I think it was like a random promotion. I think it was like done by like Pizza or something like that. But the ticket allowed you to get into the park, but it wouldn't let you get into like the other, I guess certain sections of the park itself, like the amphitheater where the actual P&D like live show was happening. And we weren't able to get in because we had that kind of ticket, and we thought it was just really dumb. I was
Oh.
like, it was like, why is this? Why is the amphitheater sectioned off from the park to the point where like a free admission ticket, which gains you access to the rest of the park, just sections off that one bit, and we were just like, we were so cheesed because we tried to fight the security guard on it so hard, and one of our friends who had a similar who had I think like the same ticket, he was able to get in and we weren't, and we were just like, what the heck?
So yeah, and then instead of like actually attending the live show, which I was already not that enthusiastic about seeing, to be
Not
honest.
gonna lie, I wasn't. Not gonna lie, I wasn't too. I only just went there just because everybody we knew was in there, and we just wanted to watch it together as just like friends watching it, some type of thing. But in terms of like the actual like the top like the mainline event like artist or actor whatever, and then the rest of the performers, like we really didn't have an interest in it.
Yeah. So and we got hungry, but we didn't want to buy like we were like high school, right? So we had like no money essentially. We had like enough money to be in the park.
Yeah, it was basically whatever our parents were handed us for the day, which is probably like $20, or like if your parents were nice like that, maybe like they'd float you with like 30 or 40, but
Yeah.
most of the time it was just like 20, and they'll be like, yeah, make it count.
Yeah, and then so we actually left the park. We were in did I mention already we were in Wonderland? Well,
Yeah.
it was formerly named Wonderland, I think. Did they change the name or something?
No, it used to be It used to be Paramount Wonderland, Paramount Canada's Wonderland. Now it's just Wonderland. That's it.
Oh, okay,
Like they
okay.
removed like all the Paramount like properties and stuff.
Yeah. But like we could go in and out of the park once you for the day once you had the ticket, right? So we actually left the park to go across the street to get food at Wendy's. And
Technically we had to cross the parking lot to cross the street. And for people who know Wonderland really well, that parking lot was friggin' big.
yeah, it's like a
And
kilometer.
exactly. And being in high school and not caring about your about like fitness and whatnot, and just not like practical dressing, I guess. It was like the longest trek of life. It was really humid that day. I remember. I was like so bent by the time we got to Wendy's.
Yeah. But just like that journey, I guess, was really where we became close and like we started hanging out a lot more,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And then yeah, that just all uh came from what our friendship just took off from there. And yeah. So like what have you been up to since the start of the pandemic? Like what's different, I guess, about pre-pandemic to current to now pandemic?
Um, I guess for when it comes to pre-pandemic, like I was working before the pandemic settled in, and it was I was like in that cycle where it was like I wake up, I go to work, and then the workday goes by, and then I go home, eat dinner, and then I go to bed. Like I was just in that constant cycle of just that. And then when the pandemic hit, as soon as they announced, like, I guess now it's the first lockdown, they're like, yeah, go home. And then from there, I was kind of cheesed just because, like, yes, I essentially just lost my job, but also I have a lot more free time to do stuff. So yeah, like with all that
Mhm.
free time, I've just been using it just to do things that I wanted to do before when I didn't have time to do it. Do work with certain, I guess, certain programs that I wanted to before I had all this free time to do, and I didn't really have because I was glued to a computer at work, yes, but most of the time it was just opening PDFs, responding to emails, making sure the production part of the branch in the back got all my files and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm. Cool. So I'm kind of in a similar situation too. Like I was working at like in administration for like this like art school as well as a box office attendant at a theater. And so I was like, at the time I was kind of like getting back into like the workforce and everything. I had like I wasn't working for a couple months prior to 2019. Like I got these two jobs like about a quarter way into the year, right? And so I'd been working that and until the pandemic happened, and then everything just like shut down, like school shut down, like the arts was just like as for you're kind of like you're also in the arts, right? Like you're
Yeah.
in a way, right? So like all that just shut down completely, and now since the start of the pandemic I just been not working kind of thing. Also, just working on things here and there, job searching here and there, and like just kind of like working in my hobbies, right?
Yeah.
um so like what was so you mentioned, I guess, what just now, what you did during your job, right?
Hmm. Oh,
um
kind yeah, kind of. I was like, my official title at work was like design specialist, but in reality, I just like talk to people, see what they wanted to get printed, and then make sure it's all nicely and properly put up on whatever sheet size that they needed in. And then I just send it to the guys in the back of our shop who ran the printing machines and all that stuff. And then I just move on to the next one. And then if needed, I talk to people on the phone in terms of pricing and all that kind of stuff.
cool, cool. And so like, by, I guess, by trade, what do you like, what do you define yourself as by trade?
Oh yeah. Oh, by trade, I see. I'm gonna say like graphic designer just because that is what I went to school for officially.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that several thousand piece of paper says that I is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like and that's also what I've been like doing. And I guess when I have like free when I do freelance too stuff too, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like it's on and off right now because of the pandemic and nobody really needs design work done. But I
Mm-hmm.
still like consider myself a graphic designer.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, and I guess as you mentioned, work has been kind of on and off throughout the last year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I guess you're currently looking for something.
Yeah, I'm still looking for work. A lot of like I've noticed that in the when it comes to the job market for designers, it's starting to climb back up again.
Mm-hmm.
And just because a lot of people are a lot of companies are willing to offer work from home positions now, which is really good. And I've been getting like a few replies here and there, but yeah, other than that, sometimes I get like an L and I get the rejection email and whatnot. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I do hit and I get like an initial email and sometimes a follow up interview. Sorry, and then and but yeah, other than that, that's pretty much like my search for now. Like while I'm not doing that, I'm just trying to keep my skills on edge in terms of just like everything Adobe related, and then a few like outside programs that are starting to become industry standard.
Dope, dope. Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar situation. Trying to like, it's a little different for me, I guess. Because I'm in the arts, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not like my ability to do those things like get dull, but the thing is like it's like a lot of the things I would be doing is like event management or administration for schools, right? But I can't really do that at the moment, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, and so I've just been like, doing like kind of delving into like my own art, right? And kind of, I think that by doing like stuff like this as well, like the podcast and like YouTube and stream, like just developing my skills in that sense. Um, for me, that's, I guess, similar to you, how I'm keeping up with like my skills a bit. But as someone also struggling to find work, um, like it must be really difficult, to take those L's and stuff like that, right? Like I don't know,
Yeah.
for me, I've sent out quite a few resumes, right? Of course, I'm not like in my situation right now. I'm not trying to apply for every single thing in the world, um, like little job, like not little job. Sorry, I take that back. I'm not trying to just apply for jobs that like are customer service jobs or working at Walmart, which is completely like is awesome, right? If you have a job at all at this point, every
Yeah,
job is really
exactly.
important, as I think the pandemic has shown us, like every job, the jobs that even you might not think are as important are actually important. They're essential, as we're
Exactly.
finding, right? But for me, I'm in like a fortunate position right now where I don't need to be looking for those kinds of jobs. You know, privileged, of course, but I'm really focusing on just finding like jobs that are in my field and you know what my education was supposed to get kind of get me at
Yeah.
the time, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
I know exactly how you feel, man. Like oh my gosh. Like there are times where like I like I as much as I like and appreciate like the retail industry is just something that I can't do anymore just because like I've just been jaded by it because I've been working retail for so long and it's just like now that I gotten a taste of like that big boy job life, that's all I can focus on.
right. Yeah, I also worked retail. We both worked retail, right? So it's like dealing with that stuff. Different personalities and people that are not always the nicest of people, to be honest.
Yeah. Like you see the memes everywhere about like the I want to speak to your manager. Like, yo, you'll be surprised how often that happens. And Lawrence and I, like Lawrence said that we both worked in retail, and it's funny because we both worked at the
The same
same
company.
yeah, the same company at one point, and so we completely get how crazy the retail world can get, especially around the holidays and stuff. And it's just like, oh
Hmm.
my gosh, man! Like once like I think we can both agree where once you climb out of like the hole when it comes to when it comes to retail, it's like you don't want to go back.
Yeah. And like, we were brought up, with like, our parents and stuff encouraging us to like pursue higher education, right? And you at some point you do want to find a job that's equivalent to what your qualifications have. What your
Exactly.
qualifications are, right? So, um yeah, like again, for me I've been applying here and there and like trying to find like meaningful work, I guess, for myself personally, like meaningful work that is personally meaningful. um and I've had interviews here and there about, and I think I've like, depending, like I've had like a couple interviews, which I think is like a pretty good ratio of like application to application to
Application to
interview
rejection.
rejection. but at this point the rejection is all it's all rejection, right? Obviously. But
Yeah.
um
It's unfortunate, but yeah, it is what
yeah,
it is.
but yeah, but it's tough. Like I get pretty discouraged when I haven't, like, even like, I think the best thing is like when you send a resume out, you just don't get an answer. Like that's fine. The tough part is when you get an interview, you go through the whole interview process, whether that's just the interview or like, I think in one case for me, and I'm sure it was the case for you, is that in as a graphic designer is you have to like, part of the interview process is to like create a project for them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like an assignment, and you put so much work on it, and then you just don't hear anything back afterwards or something like that.
It's
Um,
the absolute worst. It's even worse. It's even worse when like you're applying through like a few of the like job boards and whatnot, where where they send you an email saying like, "Hey, we got your application," and then they send you another email saying the hiring manager saw your application, and then it just flatlines from there. That's even worse. It's
yeah.
because like they know that they looked at your application and your resume and portfolio if applicable, and they just leave it at that.
Hmm. Yeah. It's so like, I guess, how are you coping with it? Rejection's pretty hard, and like, what do you do to like, sometimes I can get into a pretty like depressed state when I get a lot of rejections. Like, how do you how have you been dealing with it?
Yeah, like how I've been dealing with it, just because actually just recently that happened to me where I went through the whole process. I did the assignment and I shipped it off to the I guess design manager or whatever. And then they told me like now they're going with somebody else. So yeah, like I totally get the whole like slipping into that, getting like depressed, especially when that happens. Like it feels like you're running a race, and then by the like you get so close to the finish line, and then when you get that handed that rejection email after doing all of that work, it just feels like you tripped right before you got to the finish line, right? So yeah, the one thing that I do just to kind of alleviate that depression is just like I try like I got the I just tell myself like I was able to get this far in the interview process, so I know I'm doing something right. I guess it was just like a matter of probably I'm missing something from my portfolio or I didn't answer this question properly. It's just like I try to analyze what might have gone wrong and then try to improve on it from there. Like not to the point
Hmm.
where I'm completely manic and at the next interview,
Right.
but just to the point where I acknowledge that I'm in a good spot right now in terms of the interview process, and I have the skills needed to do the jobs that they want me to do. It's just there's a few places that I need to improve.
Okay. That's a good attitude to have, you know, see like looking what you could have done better and just like trying to improve on the next time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The tough part sometimes is for me at least. You know, sometimes I don't know if you do this or if people out there do this, but when you get a rejection, sometimes it's good to email them back and say like, "Oh, thank you for letting me know. If there's anything I could improve on, would you let me know?" kind of thing,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And so they can like give you like feedback, right?
Mhm.
But sometimes like, you know, one there's two cases. They could just like not answer you completely,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
I've had a situation where they did answer me back and they're like, honestly, like there was nothing wrong. You're perfectly qualified and like the interview went well, but we just found somebody that's more that's more qualified, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's like what happens most of the time. Like, especially as like a designer, sometimes they tell you like, "Oh yeah, you can add more of this kind of content to your portfolio. You can talk about this when it comes to work experience and stuff." But yeah, most of the time, like when you ask for feedback, sometimes they just don't give it to you. They just
Hmm.
say, "Oh, we found someone whose talents and whatnot are catered to more what we're trying to put out." I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, cool. That
Yeah,
doesn't really tell me anything, but okay.
yeah. And for me, like I think that's kind of like that's so hard to take because like you know you go into an interview, you do whatever we do, right? You know, the hope is that we're doing our best at it, right? And we've become the people that we are by doing the best that we can throughout our life, right? And you know, like we're older now, so like it's been a long time. And a lot of, you know,
Yeah.
building ourselves up. And when you get that rejection, sometimes it's just like, so what you're telling me is that there's nothing that I can do, kind of thing. And that's kind of what the mindset that gets into my brain sometimes. And like that's not healthy, I
Yeah,
guess.
absolutely, yeah.
Um but that's something that really like affects me. And yeah, I don't know. It's I'm just all I'm saying is that it's tough to like get over that in a way.
Yeah, sometimes it's like a hard pill to digest, especially when they try to tell you like, "Yeah, you're really good, but we found someone even better." It just feel like it like that thought just burrows into your mind. That's like you feel like you've plateaued and this is the best that it's gonna get for you. But nah, man, like
Hmm.
even when they hand you like such a hokey rejection, like you just gotta continue to just tell yourself like, yeah, like the job is out there. I just gotta keep like grinding and hustling and so like I'm gonna be handed a lot of rejection like emails and all these kinds of vague feedback emails and stuff, but it's just but you just gotta like tune that out and just keep soldiering on through it, you know?
Right. You're right. You're right. Um and for anybody out there, you know, if you know that's the same situation for you, you know, keep up the work, you know. It's where I get, I guess, my hope from is that, you know, we're a bit like we're a bit of, like really on the religious side, right? Like we have our faith, and you know, it's that belief in like that there's a plan for us, and that, you know, one day when it's time, you know, God will provide, right? So you know, I lose track of that personally sometimes, so it gets a little dark sometimes. But I hope anybody that's kind of in the same situation and like just trying to find a job, especially during this time, um first of all, during the pandemic, like jobs are hard to come by, obviously. Like percentage wise, so many people have lost their jobs, and you know, job opportunities are just like less than they were before, and it was already hard before to get a job.
Yeah. Like if people thought that like positions in certain fields were scarce before, like now it's even more. It's like
Yeah.
it's a lot worse.
So like that's part of the reason to like just not feel bad if you don't get a job or something like that, because like now that there's so little, like there's less opportunity, but then there's more people unemployed. It just That's just those statistics around it, right? Um, so don't feel bad like there's something like wrong with the people. Like I try to have to remind myself like that there's nothing wrong with me. It's just the situation right now, right?
Exactly.
And I just have to keep working and keep improving on myself, right?
Exactly. So it's like sometimes you see on like those job websites where like they have this many applicants, but so yeah, out of just from thinking, just if you think about it in a way, like if say like there's 300 applicants for a position, which is something common to me as well, and then they choose one, so 299 people also got that. Unfortunately, we're moving on with a different candidate email. So like
Mhm.
you're not alone in that sense. Like they didn't single you out specifically. They just found one person and they found one person, but they're rejecting like almost 300 others.
Right. So, and that's like a generous number too, right?
Exactly. That's a generous number. Yeah.
Yeah. So, finding a job, while that's really important, right? To make money to pay for the things that like pay for your house and stuff like that, your rent, whatever, right? Um, you know, with not having a job, and is it for me like, though I don't have a job because of the pandemic right now, it's not the first time I've never had a job, right? I've been unemployed. Like it's just kind of the way it is when it comes to like the industries that we're in, right? Um, work some in the arts, work comes by, contractually or like here and there. Sometimes it's not always that it's permanent, right? Um, so like asides from work, then, or actually in talking about our jobs, right? Even if we don't have a job, like, do you think it's related directly to like who you are and like your happiness?
That's a good, yeah, that's actually a good like question, just because in terms of like your job defining you, like it does give you a title, but I don't think it completely contributes to like who you are as a whole. Like, yes, I like to draw, I like to do art, and and I'm a graphic designer, but that only caters to about maybe 20 to 30% of who I am. Like, I have interests and and other aspects of my personality that define who I am beyond all of that. And also in terms of happiness, I feel like especially in this day and age, like happiness is just a very perceptive thing. Like we're part of that generation where like our parents told us it's like, oh, if you want to be happy you got to have like that 12 car garage and only have like 6 cars, and you got to have like the Rolly, and got to have like all these stocks, and you got to have like all this money in your account and whatnot. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
nice because some people still still I guess define happiness like that, and that's cool. But then there's some people who are kind of just like kind of like like those people who have like that high expectation of happiness, they're just quote unquote getting by, but they're completely happy with it. Like they're just doing like a regular like 9 to 5 job, going home, being having the opportunity to like game and talk to their friends and stuff and just eat like a nice meal. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's their definition of happiness. So like for me
Right.
personally, I was originally in that mindset too. Don't get me wrong, where like if I don't have like 6 figures in the bank account by the time I'm 25, I'm nothing, right? And that really
Mm-hmm.
takes a mental toll on some people, especially like our generation.
Right.
But yeah, like right now, like I'm at that point where like my personal happiness is just being able to just like wake up, get some good like food in my stomach, being able to like turn on my TV, game with a decent internet connection, being able to check up on the homies and my partner and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
and then being able to just like go to bed the next day. You know, like I'm healthy and I'm able to do all these things, and and I'm blessed to be able to do these things. So yeah, like I by my definition, I say um your job status and your job title and all your accolades and stuff probably contributes to 10 to 15% of your happiness. The rest of it is just how you personally perceive it.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. You're right. Like I totally agree. Right. Like growing up, we have this perception, like from whatever it is, from media, from just like growing up in our own families and conversations between people, that like you need these things to be happy, to like be successful, right? And it's tough because like our parents, they I guess as Asian kids too, right? Our parents were very much pushed us to, pursue higher education and because university or college, means that you'll get a job, that means that you'll be able to um, like do all of these things and like afford for yourself and have a stable lifestyle, right? Because like our parents, like they're immigrants, right? So they didn't always have that stable lifestyle when they were younger,
Exactly.
right? And so like you grow up with that thinking, at least I did. I grew up with that thinking that I needed to, settle and like yeah, kind of settle on a job that was realistic in a way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you know, I won't go into the whole like whether getting a job that's realistic or like, in the arts is like a privileged thing, but for me, like that's how I grew up thinking like I just wanted to have a stable life and like stable income, right? And I still do want that, obviously, but it became like at some point it became directly tied to my perception of what happiness was, right?
yeah,
And growing up, right, at 20 years old, I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life now. When I graduated university, like I just did it because I found something, like I knew I had to go to university for whatever reason, whether it was whether it like pertained to like what I wanted to do afterwards was like questionable, right? And even when I figured out what I wanted to do, I decided not to do it at that, like when I came out of university, because I didn't feel like that was what I wanted to be anymore,
yeah.
right?
I know that feel like for me because I jumped from I think it's like two different programs to get where I am at today because like right off the bat from high school, I wanted to I went into the auto mechanic program at Centennial. But then it was only a 2-year program, but I dropped out at the end of the first year. And then I went into like by that time I already figured out like as much as I want like as much as like I like cars and stuff, I feel more comfortable behind a computer. So I decided to try my hand at software engineering, also
Mm-hmm.
at that school. And then like as it was going on, I just realized that like the teacher like I didn't really like the teachers at that school. Like I know that's a very like pissy thing to say, but it's just in terms of like the content that they were delivering it and just like being able to digest it all. I don't think they did a rather good job just because I know people who were in that program and they didn't get it and they don't have like I guess
Mm-hmm.
jobs that relate to the program. So yeah, like after that, I just left that school altogether, and then I was just I sat I think I yeah I was basically out of school for an entire year, not knowing what I wanted to do, and then one day I saw my friend's social. He's like he was putting out art, and then he was doing like all the hashtags and stuff, and I saw Adobe Illustrator. Like by that time, the only Adobe thing that was relevant in my life and as well as our lives as well was Photoshop. So I didn't know that there were other Adobe programs in that camp as well. So yeah, from that by that time, I was decided, yeah, why don't I try my hand at graphic design? So yeah, like I got Illustrator, I got like the latest Photoshop and like a few other programs, and I tried and like yeah, I really enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, and then from there I just built my portfolio.
That's good.
So yeah, like it's like a completely different I guess take in terms of like going from I guess a job in like an actual with like an actual I guess quote unquote reputable field to something that's in the arts. Is everyone like most people just kind of see it as like I don't want, I'm going to be very like some people kind of perceive it as a downgrade. I don't. I just see it as I'm doing something that I enjoy much more than what I was originally pursuing.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, like what you were saying, like not everybody like ends up doing like I know it was like a critique of like the program when you said it, but not everybody ends up doing the thing that they went to school for, obviously, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Luckily there's like transferable skills and you can like do different like you can get whatever job at the time, and sometimes it's in your field, sometimes it's not, right? The tough part is when like you're like for me, it was really tough getting finding a job at all, right? Um even like I had a lot of transferable skills, but I was and eventually, after figuring out what I wanted to do, well, questionable whether I want to do it, as a job, at least what I want to do as a job. Um, I settled on like this industry in the like working as a arts administrator in like the not-for-profit arts sector, right? And you know, just hoping that it would give me the skills I needed to pursue, like, to get a job somehow in like whatever industry, right? Hopefully, like, having it in the arts made me help me focus on like finding a job in some sort of industry, and cater, and like my skills would be more catered to it. Um, but it's just it's definitely a struggle, and um, for me, I think, yeah, I guess I was just saying, right, like it does like tie into whether I'm happy or not, because I hoped for when I was younger that um as I'd be at this age, like a full grown adult essentially, right? And have a job and like being well on my way to like saving up and stuff like that. But here I am today, like as I mentioned in my introduction episode, I'm 29 years old now, and I still don't have that stable lifestyle. I still don't have that. I've never had that one job that like I stuck around for 3 years because it was like good for me, right? And like it was good for the company, liked me enough, kind of thing. Or a lot of my jobs have been kind of not, it haven't been permanent, right? And like that's nothing about like what I've done. It's just like just the nature of like the industry and like the job market, right? So I think that really affected like my happiness and stuff like that. But recently, I guess I've been trying to find a way to define myself outside of whatever job I had, right? Whether I have a job, and I guess with the pandemic, whether I have a job or not, um it made me question like who do I want to be, like who am I at the core of who I am, right? Job or not. And I guess I already asked you like if your job defines you or not, and like, but for you, like, who do you feel you are outside of your job?
Yeah, like outside of my job, like what like on the flip side of that coin, like at my job, like I'm a designer. I know how to use like several Adobe programs and this, that, and the third, and I know how to conduct myself when I'm, I guess, in my quote unquote in my element. But outside of that, like outside of that, like I barely, like sometimes like I barely touch Adobe. Like I don't exactly live and breathe Adobe like creative suite. Like I don't exactly walk up to like my like our other friends and they're just like, "Yo, did you see that new Illustrator patch? That's brazy." I'm like, nah, man. Like I talk to them about like random stuff. Like I like talking to them about like hype stuff. I like talking to them about memes and like now, especially now we're at that age where we got to be more smart with our money. Like I like talking about like investing and stocks and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, like my career, like as who I am as a person, like my yeah, like my job doesn't exactly define me as a whole. Like it defines about maybe yeah, like 10 to 15% of who I am. Like
Mhm.
yes, in terms of like, am I able to put food on the table with these skills? But in terms of like who I am and like what's shaped me and like what my like I guess like what parts of my personality that are very present and kind of like I guess under the like not under the rug, but like that aren't as like out there. Yeah, there's like a lot more to me than that.
Awesome. Um, yeah, I guess on my end of the thing, my end of that question, right? Like, I definitely I actually define myself more outside of my job than by my job. Like that is a common thing. Like you're a lawyer, you lawyer.
Yeah,
You're a doctor. That's everything you are, right? Like a
for
lot of
sure.
doctors is like what I've noticed like from friends and stuff is that like what do they define themselves as is being a doctor, because it's like it's your whole life, right?
Yeah,
um People that are teachers, right, they define themselves a lot by their job, because being a teacher is difficult. You're working around the clock, um even outside of school, right? And so there's a tendency there to define yourself by your job. But there's so many other things like that I want to define myself by as, and like yeah, we can define ourselves as like I mean I guess what I'm trying to say is uh some people like they go home and they're parents, right? So they're a father, they're a mother,
Yeah.
right? They're a
Yeah.
partner. And while those are part of my identity as well, right? It's not all I am too, right? Like I don't want to define personally, I don't want to define myself merely by how other people perceive me and like my relationships with other people. Like I am a partner, I am a friend. I'm single man dating, right? So but I am a partner, I'm a friend, I'm a son, I'm a brother, right? But for me, I try to define. I'm looking for that thing that defines me for me, right?
Yeah.
And for me, like despite like this personally, but despite what it looks like, I do define myself as an artist, right? And I think it's been a long time. It's been hard for me to come around to say that openly because I'm not exactly confident in my art, and like I haven't like produced a whole lot of things and shared a whole lot of things with people. But I, currently, especially during this pandemic, I've been working on my music uh, that I've been like in the process of writing for the last 5 years. It's like an EP that I'm working on, right? And I
Yeah. Yeah.
really like over those 5 years, I've created these songs, and I'm finally trying to put them down and like into recording actually, so I can share it with people, right? And I think actually since I started doing that and really focusing on reaching that goal, I've been a lot happier than I have been in a while, right? And I guess for you, what is that like? Do you have like that hobby or that passion outside of your work, or maybe it is your work or whatever it is that kind of keeps you like moving and like brings you fulfillment in a way? It doesn't even have to be something you do. It could just be something.
Uh, yeah, like especially during this pandemic, like I said, I have a lot more free time to experiment with like different, like a lot of different things. So a lot of the stuff that I've been doing is like, yes, it's a bit still been like Adobe related, but I'm doing a lot more like video editing, motion graphics, that type of stuff. And I put it all on my design social account, and then and like I get a lot of good feedback from it. So that's always like a nice positive thing, I guess. But then outside of the realm of Adobe, like I'm doing like a lot more like I'm pretty sure like everyone else in this pandemic, they're like stuck home. They're like taking up like baking and cooking. For me, like being able to like cook myself and my family like a nice like warm meal, especially since um like my basically my only family member here, she works as a frontliner, and like me being able to provide her like a nice hot meal after all that she goes through, in like in the hospitals and stuff. Like, yeah, it's a very fulfilling thing, just because like it's like she cooked meals for me for like however like basically my entire life, and now I'm able to pay her back in that sense.
Right.
And
Your mom, by
then
the way.
yeah, if it hasn't dawned on you guys yet, it's my mom. Just because, yeah, I'm the product of a divorced family, unfortunately, but it is what it is. But yeah, but outside of that, like, yeah, like I've had the opportunity to like step away from like the design stuff and like all the computer stuff, and just do a lot more, I guess, hands-on hobbies and stuff. Like I've taken up sewing, which I really love. And like, yeah, just because and like yeah, it's a very personal thing for me as well, just because like for those who know us in real life and like who've seen us physically, like we're widely built, to put it politely. We're widely built. So it's kind of hard for us to find like nice fitting clothes, and since I like clothes and stuff, like it was very hard for me, especially before like I started like working out and monitoring my weight and whatnot. It was very hard for me to find like nice fitting clothes. There was one point where like I would just constantly wear like super baggy stuff, because I just felt that like the smallest like part of me that was I guess bulging out, I felt really insecure about it. But then at that point, like I just decided like I'm like, you know what? One day I'm just gonna make my own clothes, just because like I'm tired of like dropping money on all these like shirts and pants and stuff like that. And then yeah, and then when the pandemic hit, it just gave me the opportunity to, one, get my health in order, and two, being able to make like stuff that I want to wear. And like and those who follow me on my personal account on social, like they've seen the stuff that I'm able to sew. So it's very like being able to like not only being able to fulfill like that dream from that like my younger self had, but being able to look at something and say that I made this, like not just like as a design, but something like actually kind of physical. It's a very like it just brings on like a new level of happiness that you never knew really existed, just because like yeah, you made this from your own hands. I'm like I made this like type of
Right.
thing, and it's just really hard. Like I'm sure people who like sew and that kind of thing, or are in a very hands-on, I guess, craft, know what I'm talking about. But yeah, like the first time I was able to do like finish like my very first like sewing product, uh, which is like a patchwork job of which is like a patchwork job I did on a pair of pants. That was like probably the most fulfilling thing I did with a sewing machine ever.
Awesome. So it's yeah, you've got a lot of hobbies there and like, old passions from like stemming from when you were younger, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But I also like what you said at the beginning, right? Like it's those simple things like making a meal for your like loved one that bring fulfillment. And like, as much as for me, I focus on like what is it that I'm doing, what am I creating, what am I um like that's bringing me happiness, like what's my job, blah blah blah. I think we tend to forget because of like the busyness of life that it is, those little things that we enjoy doing, whether it's you know sewing pockets to our clothes, or like, or again cooking for your family, right? Just to like help support them, right? I think those it's a lot of those moments, like having this conversation with you and like, just chatting on Discord and whatever and playing
yeah, yeah.
games here and there. Those are parts of life that help us feel like we're living, right?
Exactly. It's like the small things in life that we take for granted. Like especially in this pandemic, I think a lot of people can agree that going outside is something that we took for granted, like being able to be in the presence of like people without being sure like yo like stay away from me type thing, and just being and just like and of course like the whole like not wearing like a face covering and whatnot, like that's something we all took for granted. But then outside of that, like yeah, being able to like dap your homeboys, like or hug your partner, or even some cases where people are living apart from their families, they're not even allowed to like see them or hug them just because of what's going on outside. And
Hmm.
then for the people who are living at home, it's just the very small thing is just being able to say hi to your mom or your dad, or even if your siblings are still here, saying like what's good to your siblings, just because like they're like especially if they're quote unquote essential work,
Hmm.
like they're so tired that you don't want to kind of bother them because like they know they had like a really busy day, because they're pretty much picking up the slack of like eight other people, and because of like staff cuts and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like yeah, just like I guess just like those basic interactions and those like very very small things that attribute to our daily life is something that we take for granted, but we also don't realize that brings us a lot of happiness.
Right. 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 And just on the flip side of that, you know what, I'm actually really happy that since the pandemic started, people have started giving each other space, because that was something that I really did not like when we go out in public. Like people are like crowding and stuff. Like I'm on like the introverted side obvious of things, and like I just don't like it, people in my space kind of thing. And like when you're on like the bus or the train, right? And you're like standing in a spot, hoping like, no one's like giving like away from other people, right? And then like there's so much other space somewhere in the train or bus, and then they just decide to like stand on top, like over you, kind of thing, or something like
It's the
that.
worst.
Oh my
It's
god.
honestly the worst. I know exactly what you're talking about, because like back when I used to work, I like the morning rush is what hit me really really
Ugh.
hard. And next thing you know, like when the train comes to an abrupt halt, everybody just decides to become best friends and like huddle together as if as if the heat suddenly got turned off on on the train, and we're just like, this is too close even for me. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna need you to back off.
And like people don't smell good. Not everyone has great
No.
hygiene. So it's
Yeah,
like
like oh my gosh, like it's the worst thing ever. Like you see them with like you see them with like what like four figure costing like sneakers and like all this like high end designer stuff, but they can't afford no Old Spice. Like their monthly budget doesn't allow for shower time or Old Spice, and it gets me kind of bent.
Dude, the oh my gosh. So there's this one time I was on the bus, right? And or like the train, and it's like a little bit crowded, right? And it's like really hot day, right? And like I'm
Yeah, yeah,
short, so like there's a lot of people in the world that are taller than me, right? But
right.
just because I'm short doesn't mean you own the space that's above my head. Kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
And
it's like
some dude,
just because they have like like what like several feet difference than you, they think they own your airspace.
yeah, and so some dude is like, "Oh, let me like stand like other things, there's other ways you can hold the bar and like stabilize yourself on a train or a bus, right? But this guy decides to like have his like arm over my head, grab it, even though there's like ton of other places you could be and like other like parts of the train you can hold. He's like, and his armpit's just like right in my face, and I'm like, oh my god, get out of my face. And I'm
Oh
like,
no.
and I'm like passive aggressively, like when the bus lurches, like I just like kind of move back and like hit him and push him a little. So
Oh no.
but you know, hopefully with the pandemic, I know there's like exceptions to that, like they're still crowding on the transit and stuff like that here and there, but I'm hoping that with this pandemic and like moving forward when everything like opens back up eventually, that like we all learn that space is key and stay away from other people so that you don't like gross them out or like get them sick or something, right?
Importantly, don't spend like your paychecks or whatever financial source of income you have on just like your physical appearance, man. Like you gotta focus on everything else. Like you gotta drop that extra 2.99 at the pharmacy for some speed stick or some Old Spice. Like that's a major key.
Yeah. Had a bit of an introduction to not to both of us,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we got to know each other's perspectives on like, you know, work and like you know, life in a pandemic versus pre-pandemic, right?
Mhm.
Um so and it seems like you're doing a real like despite all this the tough stuff and all like all of the things that we've gone through in our lives that you know, still keeping optimistic, still keeping our head up, um, you know, especially during this time. So, you know, hopefully I can get you back on here another time so we can talk about a ton of other things, hopefully.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
now that, you know, the introduction is out of the way, we can like, the next time you come on, we can like talk about like specific things, right? And topics. So, before we go, I just want to ask, is there is one piece of advice you could give your past self, or to the audience, what would that be in terms of like finding happiness and fulfillment?
One piece of advice. Uh I'd say yeah, like I'd say one piece of advice is like you're definitely in a better position than you think. Especially like if you're getting nothing but like rejection email after rejection email after rejection email, it's a sign that people are looking at your stuff. Like like you may not be what person A is looking for, but but you're most likely going to be what person B is looking for. So yeah, just tune out just tune out your negativity, tune out that negativity as hard as difficult as it'll be, and just keep like working and keep hustling because it'll definitely all pay off in the long run.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, I guess we'll leave it at there for today. Thank you, Mike, for coming on. How about you shout out your where people can connect with you?
Oh yeah, sure. So my design, so yeah, my design account is at Ledesma Mike Designs, all one word, and then my personal account where I post like basically memes and like hype fashion and just like random stuff that pops into my head. It's just at Ledesma Mike.
Awesome. So you guys can also remember to connect with me on my social media as well. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube at LawTPlays. And yeah, hopefully, you know, for the next one, you guys will just be as entertained. And I'm out here trying to hustle and have some fun while I'm doing it, right?
So that's all you got to do, man. Like people just think that like the hustle is like very like droning and monotonous, but nah, man. You're able to you can make that you can make it fun.
Yeah. So keep up with both of us, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. All right,
Sure.
peace out, everyone.
See ya.